Hey, welcome back, dear readers, to another edition of Let Me Adjust My Mic. Uh, what you reading? People ask me all the time, what are you reading when you're not writing? And this is something I read. It's part of the, what's Fantagraphics called is this? It's the Disney Masters series, and it's Fantagraphics series of hardcovers of mostly European creators, uh, largely Italian, some Dutch creators working on European editions of uh, Adventures of Mickey Mouse, Donald, the other, Goofy, all those characters. And there's a long, rich history of the Europeans producing masses of really inventive, really clever, really well crafted characters, stories featuring these characters, and largely because the American comic book industry, because it collapsed in the 70s, we weren't producing any more material. And as it turns out, since the 1960s, Dell and Gold Key, they weren't producing enough Disney material to satisfy European audiences. So in the 60s, European studios began producing under the auspices, of course, of Disney itself, the oversight of Disney, began producing their own comic book material exclusively for the European market. And some of the stuff's fantastic, and some of the top talents in the comic book industry have worked on them. And one of these being the guy who did all of the stories in this volume, Corrado Mastantuono, who is a man, just a terrific comic book artist. As you can see here, he's excellent working in a more realistic style. Um, he's he's an unusual talent in that his realistic style is highly illustrative. There's not a whole lot of cartooning going on here, and yet he's also a master cartoonist. Um, and he bounces back between dramatic comics, sci-fi, fantasy, westerns, crime, to the Disney stuff with a tremendous amount of skill. And he's a relatively young guy. Got started very early in animation and comics. Got started at 16 as a professional. Worked under the tutelage of Italian artist Cremo. I've done books about Cremo or reviews of Cremo books in recent videos. One of Italy's greatest cartoonists, and he studied under this guy. Exposed to American audiences recently, doing a series of covers for a Witcher comic from Dark Horse, and as you can see, extremely talented guy. But he's great at the Disney stuff too. He's great at the Bigfoot humor and all the rest. And the stories in this volume show off his talents in that area. And I hope Fantagraphics continues to do more of these collections of Corrado's work, because they are a sight to behold. Um, this is some artwork from the interior. Because the Disney characters continued far beyond what American audiences know. They created all kinds of new characters. Um, a character prominently featured here, and I believe created by Corrado Mastantuono, is Boomer Buff, who is Donald Duck's next door neighbor, obnoxious next door neighbor in Duckburg. The stories feature Donald, either Donald or Mickey and Goofy, or Mickey by himself. There's a really terrific story of Mickey going along with Pegleg Pete to to find the original Steamboat Willie and bring it back to the surface. And it's a pretty cool story because largely it's Pegleg Pete trying to establish a new relationship with Mickey. He wants to be friends, but of course Pegleg Pete is still the vile creature he always will be. So that's never going to happen. But it is a bit of a buddy story, and it's pretty funny. It's got some good stuff in it. Um, there's also a really good story about Mickey, a double showing up in Mouseburg that kind of looks like Dick. Mickey called Ricky Rodent, and Mickey gets upset. We see Mickey's cool, his elan sort of melt as this double character gets all kinds of attention that Mickey wants for solving crimes and helping out the community. And of course, Ricky Rodent is up to no good, and we find that out over the course of the story. But it's a funny story with a particularly funny closing scene. Um, and I mean, as you can see, I mean, Maslantano, he just brings it all to this. He's got this really bouncy, kinetic, animated style. It just makes all of the panels really lively, and obviously, tremendous draftsman. Um, just a master of this craft. There's a time travel story that I really didn't like. It was overcomplicated, and um, the biggest problem with it I had was, as a time travel story, it had way too many anachronisms in it. It had way too many historical inaccuracies, both in the dialogue and in the visuals. So I really didn't care for that one. But largely, the stories are terrific. The Boomer Buff character I love. He's this really nuanced. He's an annoying guy, but he's somewhat endearing in a way because he's somewhat vulnerable as a character. And as much as he drives Donald crazy, you kind of sympathize with him a little bit, which is always the hallmark of a great villain. So anyway, I mean, if you've never checked out these Disney Masters series, they're worth taking a look at because they're lovingly produced. They're quite a bargain. Let me see. I got the book in my hand. This was $35, but it's well over 200 pages of Disney work you're never going to see anywhere else, in English certainly. And if I have any problem with it, it's the English translations. I mean, they're trying to, I don't know if there are puns in Italian, but they're trying to reproduce the Italian dialogue. And I think in some cases they try to update it a little too much. Most of these stories are from the 90s, early 2000s. And yet the dialogue makes reference to things that are more recent. And I wouldn't have done that. That's not a choice I would have made. But anyway, Disney classics. If you like this stuff, you definitely need to check it out. And if you've got kids or no kids, they probably like these comics. It's a good value. It's a good package. Anyway, that's what I've been reading. I'll read some more and tell you more about it down the road.